before they left, God's like, it was like, this is a bad idea. This isn't going to go well. And there were other angels that were like, the math doesn't work. You're going to get stuck. And they were like, no, we've got it figured out. And so in the beginning, it was fine. They would come and play and be physical, and they'd go back to heaven. But every single time they came to Earth, it got heavier. It got denser. And then one day they got stuck and they couldn't get out. And then God said, well, I'm going to send a bunch of other angels to rescue them. And in my culture, we call those the first runners. And guess what happened? They got stuck. And then God sent the second runners, and they all got stuck. And God says, I'm done. That plan isn't working. So if you fast forward to Jesus and the resurrection and all of that stuff, what happened is they lost their blueprint. So if you look at a document on a piece of paper on a copy machine and it starts to fade out, the reason they were getting stuck is they were losing their blueprint. They couldn't figure out how to get back out. And Jesus brought that blueprint back to the planet. And so that's the long and short of that.
Well, if God created everything, couldn't he just free everybody or do something?
No, because there's the free will piece of all this, right? So there are laws of the universe that cannot be violated, like gravity, for example. And if a soul decides, okay, I'm going to try that, and it's like your children. All right, you go try that. You could intervene, or you could say, no, let them learn from whatever happens. So no, God wasn't really in the space to intervene. And so this redemption cycle, we are kind of in the end times now, and this has a lot to do with where we are and where we're going and what's going to happen next, really.
So are all of us humans fallen angels?
Well, no. You ask great questions. I like that.
Thank you.
If it gets too complicated, we can always, unpack it. So these are the types of souls you have on the planet. You've got the angels that fell, okay? Well, the angels were here, and they were freaking out in the beginning because they got stuck. So they said, well, at that point, they were still pretty powerful. They still had a lot of power. So they created what were called souls of the earth. And souls of the earth were Adam and Eve, and they brought them up from the earth. From dust they were brought up, and from dust thou shalt return. So they created, because they needed partners, and it was complicated in the beginning. So you have souls of the earth. And then because we are in this place in the universe, you do have a lot of ET spirits, either as walk-ins or hybrids. If we talk about soul walking into a body, I'm not necessarily saying, okay, you're an ET and you're walking around. No, it's not always like that. A lot of people are starseeds. And so what happened is after the atomic bombs went off in 1945, that was a mirror reflection of the bomb going off in Atlantis. And it fractured time-space. And when time-space got fractured, Earth became very heavy, heavier than it was before. And it created density field. And it started pulling starseeds into the planet, into the birth cycle. So part of why you have this huge increase of people on your planet is that starseeds are being pulled in from other places that normally they wouldn't have incarnated on Earth. So you have all three, really.
So the starseeds aren't coming here willingly. They're getting trapped here.
Some are definitely here because they chose to be. They wanted to be here for the show. I always call this the show. They wanted to be here for this time. But a lot of starseeds just got pulled in here. So part of why there's so much ET activity is they're here to pick up their family at the end of their lifetime. And so that's part of why there's a lot of ET in action, because of the rip and hole in time space. So hopefully this goes well, and Earth gets back in its right spot, like Stephanie talked about last time, then everything kind of gets rearranged and in a good space. I'm actually a time traveler. So I'm actually from like 2400 time frame. And I time jumped, because a lot of ET species can jump through time, no problem. We go whatever. We don't look at time the way you do. And so I came back to 1954. And then I decided to stay and help the Earth problem. And so I've been living sequentially from 54 through now, if that makes sense.
What about CERN? Couldn't CERN repair this fractured time thing?
Well, CERN only complicated it, because humans are like children. They don't know what they're doing, and they have done time experiments at CERN. And it's created what they call parallel time or parallel reality, whereas before the parallels were in their own lane, and you were just living on your, well, ETs call that the optimal timeline. We're looking for the optimal timeline, correct? But a lot of these experiments that happened at CERN fractured time space. And so a lot of what the ETs are doing is going around and trying to stitch up time in these little branches that really don't go anywhere. And that's why you have the Mandela effect, why people remember things differently because of these fractures in time space. I do feel like, I don't know a whole lot about current things with CERN, but I feel like they're not really doing what they were doing before, because what they were doing before was really just making it worse. And so it seems like they're kind of like acquiesced and kind of like, all right, we're going to let beings more powerful than us to try to fix these things.
Since you are able to jump time, can you see the future and reveal to us what's coming?
All right. So no one can see the future. No one can predict the future. That's not exactly true. Because think about it. All right. So you're here in time. I'm living in 2400. I back up to 1954 and I'm choosing to live sequentially forward, right? Now, if I time jump back to 2400, you can go back to a specific point in time. That's easy to do. Coming back is tricky, to come back to exactly where you left time. It doesn't work.